Hello and welcome to another lesson on soundproofing and sound isolation. My name is Wilson Harwood and I am a studio designer and acoustician based in Nashville, Tennessee. Today I'm going to be going over why I've changed my opinion and why I now prefer to use Hush Frame Rafts over my original recommendation of the IB1 clips. Before we jump in on this new lesson here, I wanted to let you know that I do have a free resource for you. This is my free soundproofing workshop. It's going to be 45 minutes of in-depth teaching going over everything I know about how to teach you how to build a soundproof home recording studio. To watch that, you can sign up right away and watch it at soundproofyourstudio.com/workshop. That is soundproofyourstudio.com/workshop. All right, let's jump into this lesson on why I now recommend Hush Frame Rafts. So when I first built my studio, I got the recommendation to use what are known as IB1 clips. They go under several different names, but within the Soundproofing Company, who was the soundproofing supplier I used when I built this studio, they recommended I use their IB1 clips for my ceiling, as well as green glue. Now, for those of you who have been following this channel for a while, you know I no longer recommend green glue, and now I am no longer recommending the IB1 clips. And so nothing against really the Soundproofing Company or these products necessarily, although I just think both of them don't work as well as they could. And so now I am shifting to recommending the Hush Frame Rafts. And the main difference between these two different types of clips is that the IB1 clips, albeit much cheaper, do not offer the same level of isolation as the Hush Frame Rafts. And so that's one of the main reasons I decided to switch over, was that the IB1 clips are just a metal clip. They don't have any sort of decoupling feature like rubber or silicone in the case of the Hush Frame Rafts. And so I decided, after talking to a few other soundproof designers out there and also just kind of learning more in my own research and design, that I wanted to move away from the IB1 clips and shift to something that had more decoupling in them. So I opted for the Hush Frame Rafts, and I'll explain in more and more points on this lesson why I opted for the Hush Frame Rafts and not something like the RISC-1 clips, which are a popular competitor that still offer the rubber isolation. But there's a few reasons why I decided not to go that route, and like I said, I'll explain that here in a second. One of the main reasons that I like the Hush Frame Rafts is that you still get that silicone decoupling in the clip itself while maintaining a very low profile. And the main reason for this is that I want to use as much space as possible in the room and not have to use all the space up for sound isolation and acoustic. And so many of my clients don't have huge spaces to begin with that we're building within, so any opportunity I have to save space in the construction is a huge plus. And we're talking fractions of an inch here. I mean, it does make a difference overall, especially in ceiling height, when if you can get that ceiling height just a little bit higher, the whole room can feel bigger. Not to mention the acoustics will be slightly better, but not really as noticeable as just the feel of the room itself. So I'm always opting for something that has a lower profile, and the Hush Frame Rafts come in at just under an inch, which is great, whereas other competitors like the RISC clips have a larger profile, over an inch. So you're actually going to lose even more space, plus all the drywall that you're putting on top of those clips and the furring channels as well. Another reason I have opted for these Hush Frame Rafts is they are the only option on the market that I know of that allows you to use wood furring channel instead of the 7/8 inch furring channel, which is metal, that I would usually use with the IB1 clips. You can use metal with the Hush Frame Rafts, but it's so nice when you're designing to use what they recommend are 1x3s, standard wood size that you can get at any local hardware store. And your contractor can easily source these. Whereas with the metal furring strips, I always found that I had to look for specialty suppliers, which just makes an already complicated process that much more complicated. And one of the main things I've learned as a studio designer is that when you hand your plans to the contractor, the contractor is already going to look at your plans and be like, oh my God, this is so much harder than building a traditional house or a home renovation. So any chance I get to make that process just that much simpler for the contractor, I'm going to take it. And that might be one of the strongest reasons why I've been preferring the Hush Frame Rafts these days over the IB1 clips or other competitors like the RISC-1 clips. Another main point is that I actually got to use these here in Nashville, which was exciting, and see them in action. And Henry Thompson and I have been designing and building a studio together for a client, and we opted to use the Hush Frame Rafts to see how they work versus the IB1 clips we have done for all the other studios here in Nashville. And Henry said right away, he said, yeah, I like working with these. He really enjoyed it. He enjoyed working with the wood furring. He said that it was easier to get a level ceiling or wall because you can actually shim behind the clips or actually move the clips up and down on the ceiling joists or on your stud bays to get them level with each other. Whereas when you have metal clips and metal furring channel, there's really not much you can do. You got to make sure your walls are perfectly level and your ceiling's perfectly level. So when we're dealing with home renovations in existing structures, things are almost never level, especially after 50, 60 years of time. Things tend to sag, or back in the day, they just didn't have as accurate measurements. So that's one of the reasons why I recommend the Hush Frame Rafts in terms of ease of use. And he also said that with the silicone in between them, it actually created a more flexible system, which clearly shows that having a less rigid system is going to help with the sound isolation as well. So those are a bunch of reasons. Henry gave me the 2 thumbs up, which I always appreciate from him working with a contractor in the field. I'm just a studio designer in my studio designing these things, so it's good to have feedback from actual contractors out there. Lastly, as a designer and someone who is constantly looking at differing wall masses. Sometimes I use 2 layers of drywall. Sometimes I use 3 layers of drywall, 4 layers of drywall. Sometimes I'll use a combination of drywall and mass loaded vinyl. And so I'm constantly dealing with different weights on my ceiling and in my wall systems. And the Hush Frame Raft manual is really, really in-depth versus some of the other products I've dealt with. And that is super helpful when you're dealing with complex scenarios with non-traditional ceiling loads and wall loads, and I can just look in their construction manual and see differing patterns of placing the rafts on walls and ceilings and what the load capacity is. So as I'm trying to design studios, I trust the engineering. I understand what my load weights are on my ceilings and walls, and that's really helpful. I don't have to call the manufacturer, waste time, or just hope that it works well, or have to over design, spending more and more money than I need to just to make sure that I have a strong system to hold up my ceilings and my walls. So thumbs up on the instruction manual. I really appreciate that when a manufacturer goes out of their way to make the installation process that much easier. So in conclusion, you can see that some of you who have followed my channel for a while, you might know that back in the day, I recommended the IB1 clips mainly because they do have a low profile as well. I think it's 1 1/8 of an inch versus a little less than an inch. So really close in profile. But like I said, the decoupling factor is something I'm really pushing into these days. Granted, I have used these in many studios, so if you want to use the IB1 clips, I don't think you're going to have failed isolation by any means. I just think you'll get better isolation by using the Hush Frame Rafts. One thing I didn't talk about yet is price, and I will say that I usually buy my Hush Frame Rafts from the ISO store, which, by the way, I really like the ISO store as well. I'm moving away from the Soundproofing Company just because the ISO store, I just like their brand. I like what they're supplying, and I just like them better. I don't know how else to say it. And so you can get them at the ISO store for $4.95 per Hush Frame Raft, which some of you might be like, whoa, that's expensive. The RSIC clips are roughly, I think, a little cheaper, maybe $4.50. And then the IB1 clips are a lot cheaper. You can get them from the Soundproofing Company, I think around $1.50 to $2 a clip, but you can also look on Google, and I think they go under the name A237 clips, and I've seen Buildcore Direct sell them as low as $1.25 or something per clip. So like I said before, if you're doing a huge space and you want to save money at scale, you could use the IB1 clips. However, these days I'm just kind of focusing my system and I'm using one clip. So I'm not constantly like, oh, this design did these clips and this, So for me, it's really about trusting the product, liking the product, and committing to it for my clients. But you as DIY designers need to kind of weigh the pros and cons with all these options that are out there on the internet. And I hope this video helped with that. So anyways, I am Wilson Harwood again. I'm a studio designer and acoustician based in Nashville, Tennessee. If you are on the journey of trying to learn how to build your own home recording studio, definitely check out my free resource, which is the Soundproofing Workshop at soundproofyourstudio.com/workshop. And if you're not feeling the DIY vibes and you want to do it together and you have the budget, at least I would say probably pushing more towards $20,000 in your budget these days at a minimum, definitely reach out for a Soundproof Clarity call on my website. I'd be happy to talk to you about potentially working together and designing your studio with you. So you can do that at soundproofyourstudio.com. All right. Thank you all so much. It's been wonderful teaching you over the years, and another video is coming at you next week on soundproofing and acoustics. So thanks so much. I'll talk to you all later.